The blood on Rebecca Norton's hands wasn't hers, but nobody in Red Cloud, Nebraska would believe that come morning. She stood in the middle of the Silver Dollar Saloon at midnight in late August 1878, her cotton dress soaked crimson, her breath coming in ragged gasps as the body of Marcus Webb lay sprawled at her feet with a knife buried deep in his chest. The dozen witnesses who packed the smoky room stared at her with horror and accusation burning in their eyes, and Rebecca knew with terrible certainty that her word against theirs would mean a rope around her neck by Sunday. The door burst open, and a tall cowboy with weather-worn features stepped inside, his spurs jingling against the wooden floor, his dark eyes taking in the scene with an intensity that made her heart skip, despite the terror coursing through her veins. Owen Ashford had ridden into town only 3 days prior, looking for work at the cattle ranch owned by Rebecca's father, and in those brief encounters at the family dinner table, she had noticed the quiet strength in his demeanor and the gentle way he spoke to the horses. Now he pushed through the crowd, his broad shoulders parting the mass of onlookers like a ship cutting through water, and when he reached her side, he looked down at the dead man and then up at her trembling face. "He attacked me," Rebecca said, her voice breaking. "He had the knife first. He was going to kill me because I refused his advances. I only grabbed it when we struggled and it turned on him. I swear that is what happened." The saloon owner, a portly man named Jenkins, stepped forward with his arms crossed. "That ain't how it looked to us, Miss Norton. We saw you standing over Webb with that knife in your hand, looking pleased as punch about what you done." "You didn't see what happened before," Rebecca protested. "You only came when you heard the struggle. Marcus cornered me near the back room. I came here looking for my brother, and Marcus said he knew where Thomas was. He lured me back there, and then he tried to force himself on me." A woman in a feathered hat laughed bitterly. "Convenient story. Everyone knows Marcus Webb was sweet on you for months. Maybe you led him on and then changed your mind when he wanted what you promised." "I promised him nothing," Rebecca said, her voice rising with desperation. "Why would I come to a saloon alone at night if I meant to meet him? I was worried about Thomas. He hasn't been home in 2 days." Owen stepped closer to her, his presence solid and reassuring. "Did anyone here actually see what happened from the start?" The crowd shifted uncomfortably. A man in a dusty coat spoke up. "We heard shouting and crashing. When we got to the back hallway, we saw them struggling. Then she grabbed the knife from him and drove it home." "So you saw him with the knife first," Owen said, his voice steady and calm. "Well, yes, but she took it from him and killed him with it. That makes it murder in my book." "That makes it self-defense," Owen replied. "If a man attacks a woman with a knife and she manages to turn his weapon against him, she has every right to protect her life." Jenkins shook his head. "You weren't even here, stranger. You got no say in this matter." "I got eyes and a brain, same as anyone," Owen said. "And I got something else you all seem to be lacking tonight, which is basic human decency. This woman is clearly terrified and traumatized. Look at her. Does she look like a cold-blooded killer to you?" Rebecca could feel tears streaming down her face, hot and shameful. She had never killed anyone before, never imagined she could, and the weight of what had happened pressed down on her chest like a boulder. Even if Marcus had attacked her, even if she had only defended herself, the reality of his death was something she would carry forever. "We need to get the sheriff," someone called out. "Let him sort this mess." "Sheriff Dunmore is out at the Henderson Ranch dealing with rustlers," Jenkins said. "Won't be back until tomorrow afternoon at the earliest. Then we hold her until he returns," the woman in the feathered hat declared. "Lock her in the storage room so she can't run." Owen's jaw tightened. "You will do no such thing. Miss Norton is coming with me. I will take responsibility for her until the sheriff returns. And who are you to make such a promise? Jenkins demanded. Owen Ashford. I work for Henry Norton at his ranch. I give you my word that I will bring her to the sheriff as soon as he is back in town. But I will not let you lock her up like an animal when she has just survived an attack. The crowd murmured, uncertain. Henry Norton was one of the most respected ranchers in the county, and his name carried weight. After a long moment, Jenkins nodded reluctantly. Fine. But if she runs, Ashford, it is on your head. We will come for both of you. Owen placed a hand on Rebecca's shoulder, and the warmth of it steadied her shaking. She won't run. Come on, Miss Norton. Let us get you home. They walked out into the cool night air, and Rebecca gulped it down like water after days in the desert. The street was empty except for a few tied horses, and the distant sound of a piano playing in another establishment down the road. Owen led her to his horse, a sturdy bay gelding, and helped her mount before swinging up behind her. As they rode through the darkness toward her father's ranch 2 miles outside of town, Rebecca finally allowed herself to break down. Sobs racked her body, and she felt Owen's arm tighten around her waist to keep her steady in the saddle. I didn't mean to kill him, she whispered. I just wanted him to stop. He was so much stronger than me. When the knife turned, I felt it go in, and his eyes went wide, and then he just fell. You did what you had to do, Owen said quietly. Any person has the right to defend their life. Don't let anyone tell you different. But they won't believe me. You heard them. They think I am a murderer. I believe you, Owen said, and the simple certainty in his voice made her heart clench, and that is all that matters here. They reached the ranch house, a sprawling structure of wood and stone surrounded by fenced pastures where cattle grazed in the moonlight. Henry Norton met them at the door, his weathered face creasing with concern when he saw his daughter covered in blood. Rebecca, good Lord, what happened? Owen dismounted and helped Rebecca down, supporting her weight when her legs nearly gave out. There was an incident in town, Mr. Norton. Marcus Webb attacked your daughter. She defended herself, but he died in the struggle. The town is worked up about it, but I convinced them to let her come home until the sheriff returns tomorrow. Henry wrapped his arms around Rebecca, holding her close. Are you hurt, sweetheart? Did he harm you? No, Papa, Rebecca managed. Owen is right. Marcus tried to force himself on me. I fought back. The knife was his. When we struggled, it turned on him. Henry's expression darkened with rage and grief. That boy always had a mean streak. His father spoiled him rotten, made him think he could take whatever he wanted. I should have warned you to stay away from him. She was looking for Thomas, Owen said. Is your son back yet? Henry shook his head grimly. Thomas rode to Omaha 4 days ago to sell some horses. Should have been back by now, but sometimes he stays an extra night if the buying is good. I expect him home tomorrow. Rebecca felt a fresh wave of guilt. If she hadn't gone looking for Thomas, she never would have encountered Marcus. But then again, if she hadn't gone to the saloon, Marcus might have found her somewhere else, somewhere without witnesses. At least in town, people had seen them struggle, even if they interpreted events in the worst possible light. Owen touched his hat brim. I will sleep in the barn tonight, Mr. Norton. Keep watch in case anyone from town gets ideas about taking justice into their own hands before the sheriff returns. You will do no such thing, Henry said firmly. You will take the spare room upstairs. We have ranch hands in the bunkhouse who can keep watch. You have done more than enough already, son. I am grateful you were there for Rebecca. Owen hesitated, then nodded. I appreciate that, sir. Rebecca's mother, Martha, appeared in the doorway, her face pale with shock. When she saw her daughter's state, she immediately took charge, ushering Rebecca upstairs to help her wash and change. As the warm water turned pink in the basin, and Martha gently cleaned the blood from Rebecca's skin and hair. The older woman wept quietly. "I cannot lose you," Martha whispered. "You are my whole heart, Rebecca. If they try to hang you for defending yourself, I will burn this whole town to the ground." "Owen believes me," Rebecca said softly. "He didn't even question it. He just knew I was telling the truth." Martha paused in her ministrations, studying her daughter's face. "That cowboy has good eyes. I noticed how he looks at you during dinner the past few nights, like you are something precious." Rebecca felt her cheeks warm despite everything. "Mama, now is hardly the time." "Now is exactly the time," Martha said firmly. "When you are facing darkness, that is when you most need to remember there is still light in this world. That man rode with you through the night, stood up to an angry crowd for you, and gave his word to protect you. Those are not the actions of a casual acquaintance, daughter." After Rebecca was clean and dressed in a simple nightgown with a robe wrapped around her, she found she could not sleep. The image of Marcus's face as the life left his eyes kept replaying in her mind, and her hands trembled no matter how tightly she clasped them together. She crept downstairs and found Owen sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee in the lamplight. He looked up when she entered, and something in his expression softened. "Couldn't sleep either." She shook her head and sat down across from him. "Every time I close my eyes, I see it happening again. I keep thinking about all the ways it could have gone differently. If I had screamed sooner, if I had run faster, if I had not gone to that saloon at all." "You cannot torture yourself with what-ifs," Owen said. "You made the choices you could make in the moment. That is all any of us can do." "Why did you defend me?" Rebecca asked, meeting his gaze. "You barely know me. For all you knew, I could have been lying. I could have lured Marcus there and killed him in cold blood." Owen was quiet for a moment, turning his coffee cup in his hands. "I have been drifting from ranch to ranch for 5 years now, working where I can, moving on when the season ends. I have seen a lot of people in that time, and I have gotten pretty good at reading whether someone is honest or not. When I walked into that saloon and saw you standing there, I didn't see a killer. I saw a terrified woman who had just survived something awful. Your hands were shaking. Your eyes were wide with shock, not satisfaction. And when you spoke, your voice had the ring of truth in it." "But you don't know me," Rebecca repeated. "Maybe not," Owen admitted. "But I have known men like Marcus Webb. Entitled, angry men who think the world owes them whatever they want, including women. I saw the way his body was positioned, the way the blood pooled. That was not an execution. That was a messy, desperate fight where someone got lucky and someone didn't. You got lucky, Rebecca, and I am damn glad you did." The intensity in his voice made her breath catch. "I trust you," she said quietly, "and that is all that matters here." He smiled slightly, a rare expression that transformed his serious face. "I said that to you earlier, and now I am saying it back," Rebecca said, "because you have shown me more kindness in one night than most people do in a lifetime. Whatever happens tomorrow with the sheriff, I want you to know that I am grateful." "Nothing bad is going to happen tomorrow," Owen said with conviction. "The sheriff is a fair man from what I have heard. He will see the truth of what happened." But when Sheriff Dunmore returned to Red Cloud the next afternoon and interviewed the witnesses, his expression was grave. He was a lean man in his 50s with gray threading through his dark hair, and he had the tired eyes of someone who had seen too much violence in his years of service. He listened to Rebecca's account, then to the accounts of the saloon patrons, and finally to Owen's statement. When he finished, he sat back in his chair at the Norton ranch and sighed heavily. "Miss Norton, I believe you were defending yourself. But the problem is that the physical evidence and witness statements can be interpreted different ways. Some folks in town are calling for charges. The Webb family is wealthy and has influence. Marcus's father is demanding justice for his son. Justice? Rebecca's voice cracked. His son tried to rape me. Is that what they call justice? I am not saying I agree with them, Sheriff Dunmore said carefully. I am saying that this situation is complicated. The Webb family has already hired a lawyer from Lincoln. If I don't bring charges, they will raise hell and possibly bring in a federal marshal to investigate. But if I do bring charges, there will be a trial, and I cannot guarantee how a jury will see things. Henry slammed his fist on the table. This is outrageous. My daughter was attacked, and now she is being treated like a criminal. I understand your anger, Mr. Norton, the sheriff said, but my hands are tied. The best I can do is recommend to the judge that bail be set, and that Miss Norton be allowed to remain here at the ranch until trial. But there will have to be a trial. I am sorry. Rebecca felt the walls closing in around her. A trial meant weeks or months of uncertainty, of being watched and judged by the entire town, of having her reputation dragged through the mud. Even if she was ultimately acquitted, the stain of suspicion would follow her forever. Owen, who had been standing quietly near the window, spoke up. What if there was additional evidence, something that proved Miss Norton's version of events? Sheriff Dunmore looked at him with interest. What kind of evidence? I didn't think of it until now, but when I came into the saloon, I saw something on the floor near where they were struggling. A piece of torn fabric. It looked like it had been ripped from a dress. If that fabric matches Miss Norton's dress, it would show there was a violent struggle, not a calm, premeditated attack. Rebecca's eyes widened. My dress was torn. In the back, near the shoulder. I didn't notice until I was changing last night because of all the blood. Do you still have the dress? The sheriff asked. Martha nodded quickly. I put it aside to try to salvage it. The fabric is good quality. I will fetch it now. She returned a few minutes later with the ruined dress, and sure enough, there was a significant tear near the right shoulder blade where the seam had been wrenched apart with force. Sheriff Dunmore examined it carefully, then made some notes. This helps, he said. If we can find that piece of fabric in the saloon and it matches, it corroborates your story about being grabbed and fighting back. Let me go check the scene again. In the meantime, Miss Norton, you stay put on this property. Don't go into town. Let me do my job. Over the next 3 days, Rebecca felt like a prisoner in her own home. She helped her mother with the cooking and cleaning, tended the vegetable garden, and tried to keep her mind occupied, but the weight of her situation pressed down on her constantly. Thomas returned from Omaha, furious and protective, ready to fight anyone who spoke ill of his sister. Henry forbade him from going into town, fearing he would only make matters worse. Owen continued his work on the ranch, but Rebecca noticed he always seemed to be nearby when she was outside. He would be mending a fence within sight of the garden, or exercising horses in the corral where he could see the front porch. His presence was both comforting and confusing. She barely knew this man, yet he had inserted himself into the most dangerous moment of her life without hesitation. On the 4th evening, she found him sitting on the pasture fence watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. She approached slowly, and he glanced over with that slight smile that made her heart flutter. "Beautiful evening," he said. "Yes," she agreed, climbing up to sit beside him. "Owen, can I ask you something? Anything? Where are you from? You said you have been drifting for 5 years. What were you doing before that?" He was quiet for a long moment, and she wondered if she had overstepped. But then he spoke, his voice low and measured. "I had a ranch in Colorado, small place, but it was mine. I was engaged to be married to a woman named Sarah. We had the wedding planned, the house ready, everything perfect. Then one day she went into town for supplies and never came back. Bandits hit the stagecoach, killed everyone for a strongbox that held maybe $200. Rebecca's hand flew to her mouth. "Owen, I am so sorry." "It was a long time ago," he said, though his eyes held old pain. "After Sarah died, I couldn't stay at that ranch. Everything reminded me of what I lost. So I sold it and started moving. Figured if I kept moving, the grief couldn't catch up to me. Worked pretty well for a while. And now," he turned to look at her fully, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. "Now I am wondering if maybe I have been running from the wrong thing. Grief is just love with nowhere to go. I spent 5 years trying to bury that love, but what I should have been doing is looking for a reason to feel it again." Rebecca's heart hammered in her chest. "Owen, You don't have to say anything," he said quickly. "I know the timing is terrible. You are dealing with enough without me complicating things. But I need you to know that these past few days, watching you hold yourself together despite everything, seeing your strength and your goodness, it has reminded me what it feels like to care about someone. And if I can do anything to help you get through this, anything at all, I will do it." She reached out and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "You have already done more than I could ever ask. You believed me when no one else did. You stood up for me. You are still here, even though you could have ridden away and left this mess behind." "I would never do that," he said firmly. "Not now, not to you." They sat together as the sun dipped below the horizon, and the stars began to emerge. And for a little while, Rebecca allowed herself to forget about trials and accusations and just exist in the quiet comfort of being near someone who saw her as she truly was. Sheriff Dunmore returned 2 days later with news. He had found the piece of torn fabric in the saloon, wedged under a floorboard where it had been kicked during the struggle. It matched Rebecca's dress perfectly, and several witnesses had revised their statements after being pressed more thoroughly. A few admitted they had not actually seen who held the knife first. One woman confessed that she had been angry at Rebecca for catching the eye of a man she herself fancied, and had embellished her testimony out of spite. Most importantly, the sheriff had discovered that Marcus Webb had a history of aggressive behavior toward women that his wealthy father had repeatedly covered up by paying off families and victims. 2 other women in Red Cloud came forward, encouraged by Rebecca's case, to say that Marcus had attacked them in the past, but they had been too frightened of the Webb family's power to report it. "The judge has reviewed everything," Sheriff Dunmore said, looking relieved. "Given the new evidence and testimony, he has decided not to pursue charges. Miss Norton, you are free. The judge's official statement says that you acted in self-defense and that no reasonable jury would convict you under these circumstances." Rebecca nearly collapsed with relief. Her mother caught her, holding her close while they both wept. Henry shook the sheriff's hand vigorously, thanking him for his thoroughness and fairness. Thomas whooped with joy and immediately started planning a celebration dinner. But Rebecca's eyes sought Owen, who stood near the door with an expression of profound relief and something else, something deeper and more personal. She excused herself from her family and walked over to him. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything." "I told you it would be all right," he said, but his voice was rough with emotion. "I need to ask you something else now," Rebecca said, her heart pounding. "Are you going to leave? Now that this is over, are you going to move on to the next ranch, the next town?" He studied her face for a long moment. "Do you want me to stay?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "I know it is sudden. I know we have only known each other for a week. But I feel something when I am near you, Owen, something I have never felt before, and I think maybe you feel it too." "I do," he admitted. "Rebecca, from the moment I saw you at that dinner table, laughing at something your brother said, with flour on your nose from helping your mother bake bread, I felt something shift in my chest. Like a door I had locked tight suddenly swung open. These past days, getting to know you, seeing your courage and your heart, that feeling has only grown stronger. Then stay, she said. Work for my father, court me properly, give us a chance to see where this could go. He smiled, a full, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. I would like nothing more. The courtship that followed was unlike anything Rebecca had imagined for herself. Owen was patient and thoughtful, bringing her wildflowers from the prairie, teaching her to ride the more spirited horses she had always been too nervous to approach, sitting with her in the evenings while she read aloud from her favorite books. He spoke little but listened intently, and when he did speak, his words carried weight and meaning. The town slowly came around as well. The truth about Marcus Webb spread, and while his family left Red Cloud in disgrace, many townspeople offered Rebecca apologies for their initial judgment. She accepted them with grace, but found herself less interested in the social circles of town and more focused on building a life that felt authentic and true. Owen proved himself invaluable on the ranch. He had a gift with horses that Henry had rarely seen, and within a few months, he was managing the entire horse breeding operation. Henry began talking about expanding, about building a reputation as the premier horse ranch in Nebraska. He also began dropping hints about how nice it would be to have a son-in-law who understood the business so well. On a crisp October evening, 6 months after the night that changed everything, Owen asked Rebecca to take a walk with him along the creek that ran through the Norton property. The cottonwood trees were turning gold, their leaves rustling in the breeze, and the water burbled over smooth stones. They walked in comfortable silence until they reached a bend in the creek where a massive old oak tree spread its branches like a sheltering canopy. Owen stopped and turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. Rebecca, I came to Red Cloud looking for work. I found so much more. I found a reason to stop running. I found a home. I found you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple gold ring. I know I don't have much to offer except my work and my heart, but both of those are yours if you will have them. Will you marry me? Rebecca felt tears spilling down her cheeks, but they were tears of joy. Yes, yes, Owen, I will marry you. He slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a tenderness that made her melt against him. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless and grinning, he pressed his forehead to hers. I promise I will spend every day trying to be worthy of your trust, he said. You already are, she replied. You proved that the night you walked into that saloon and believed me when no one else did. They married in early December in a simple ceremony at the ranch, with family and close friends in attendance. The local pastor, a kind man who had never doubted Rebecca's innocence, officiated. Martha cried through the entire service. Henry beamed with pride. Thomas stood as Owen's best man, having developed a deep friendship with the cowboy over the past months. Rebecca wore a dress of pale blue silk that her mother had sewn with painstaking care, and Owen wore a new suit that made him look both handsome and slightly uncomfortable. But when he looked at her as she walked toward him through the decorated parlor, his eyes held such love and awe that Rebecca felt like the most beautiful woman in the world. Their wedding night was tender and passionate, a claiming and a giving that bound them together in ways both physical and spiritual. Owen was gentle with her, attentive to her needs and her pleasure, and when they lay tangled together afterward, Rebecca felt a completeness she had never known she was missing. They built a small house on the Norton property, close enough to the main ranch to help with the work, but far enough to have privacy. Owen continued to expand the horse operation, and Rebecca discovered she had a talent for training the animals herself. Together they developed a reputation for producing the finest cow ponies in the region. Life settled into a rhythm that was both peaceful and fulfilling. Rebecca still had nightmares sometimes about that night in the saloon, but Owen was always there to hold her when she woke trembling. He never made her feel weak for her fear, never dismissed her trauma. He simply loved her through it, steady and sure. In the spring of 1880, Rebecca discovered she was pregnant. The news filled her with a complicated mix of joy and terror. She had always wanted children, but the memory of how close she had come to losing her life, and thus any future family, haunted her. Owen sensed her anxiety and spent hours talking through her fears, promising that they would face parenthood together, as partners in every sense. Their son was born in late October, a healthy baby boy with Owen's dark eyes and Rebecca's stubborn chin. They named him Henry Owen Ashford, after both grandfathers, and called him Harry. Watching Owen hold his son for the first time, tears streaming down his weathered face as he stared at the tiny life in his arms, Rebecca fell in love with him all over again. Harry was followed 2 years later by a daughter they named Sarah Martha, honoring both Owen's lost love and Rebecca's mother. Owen had worried that Rebecca might be hurt by the choice to name their daughter after his first fiancé, but Rebecca had insisted. "She was part of making you who you are," Rebecca said, "and who you are is the man I love. Our daughter should carry her name." The children grew up surrounded by love and horses, learning to ride almost before they could walk. Harry inherited his father's quiet intensity and gift with animals. Sarah was more outgoing, charming everyone she met with her bright smile and quick wit. The ranch prospered beyond anyone's expectations. The Ashford horse breeding program became known throughout Nebraska and beyond, with buyers coming from as far as Texas and Montana to purchase their stock. Owen and Rebecca worked side by side, partners in business as well as life, their respect and affection for each other deepening with each passing year. Thomas eventually married a schoolteacher from Omaha and took over the cattle side of the ranch operation. Henry and Martha grew old gracefully, doting on their grandchildren and taking pride in all their family had built. Martha often remarked that the terrible night in the saloon, as horrific as it had been, had brought Owen and Rebecca together in a way that might never have happened otherwise. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Owen and Rebecca returned to the oak tree by the creek where he had proposed. The children were spending the night with Martha and Henry, giving them rare time alone. They spread a blanket under the branches and lay together watching the stars emerge. "Do you ever regret it?" Rebecca asked quietly. "Taking my side that night, your life would have been so much simpler if you had just kept riding." Owen rolled onto his side to face her, his hand cupping her cheek. "Simpler maybe, but not better, never better." "That night was the first night of my real life, Rebecca. Everything before was just marking time until I found you." "I love you," she said, the words still carrying the same weight and wonder they had held since the first time she spoke them. "I love you," he replied, "and I trust you. That is all that matters here." She smiled, recognizing the echo of his words from that long-ago night, but now they carried a different meaning. Not trust in the midst of crisis, but trust built on years of partnership, of raising children together, of facing challenges both small and large as a united front. This was the trust of a life fully shared, of two people who had chosen each other and continued choosing each other every single day. They made love under the stars, tender and passionate and deeply familiar, a conversation their bodies had learned over years of practice. Afterward, they lay wrapped in each other's arms, talking about their dreams for the future, about the ranch they would pass down to their children, about growing old together in the home they had built. As the years continued to pass, Rebecca occasionally thought about Marcus Webb and that terrible night. She had taken a life, and that was not something she could ever entirely leave behind. But she had also learned that survival was not something to be ashamed of, that fighting back against violence was not wrong, and that she had every right to the life she had built in the aftermath. The people who had doubted her, who had been so quick to believe the worst, eventually faded from importance. What mattered was the family she and Owen had created, the love they shared, and the legacy they were building together. The Ashford Ranch became a place of healing and growth, where horses were trained with kindness and children were raised to be strong and compassionate. By the time Harry was 15, and Sarah was 13, they were both accomplished riders and trainers in their own right. The ranch had expanded to include over 100 horses and employed a dozen hands. Owen had gray threading through his dark hair now, and Rebecca had laugh lines around her eyes, but their love had only strengthened with time. One evening, as they sat on the porch of their home watching the sunset paint the prairie in shades of gold and crimson, Sarah asked them how they had met. Harry rolled his eyes at the familiar story, but Sarah loved hearing the tale again and again. Rebecca and Owen exchanged glances, sharing one of the silent communications that long-married couples develop. Owen nodded slightly, giving permission for Rebecca to tell it. "Your father and I met during a very difficult time," Rebecca began, choosing her words carefully. The children knew the broad strokes of the story, but not all the painful details. "I was in trouble and no one wanted to help me, but your father walked in, took one look at the situation, and decided to believe me even though he barely knew me. He trusted me when trust was the rarest commodity in the world." "Why didn't anyone else believe you?" Sarah asked. "Because people sometimes see what they want to see rather than what is true," Owen said. "And sometimes people are afraid to go against the crowd, even when the crowd is wrong. But I looked at your mother, and I knew she was telling the truth, and I have never regretted that decision for a single moment." Harry, who had inherited his father's quiet wisdom, spoke up. "You taught us that trust is the foundation of everything. Trust in ourselves, trust in our family, trust in our word. That is the most important lesson you have given us." Rebecca felt tears prick her eyes. Her children would never have to face the kind of judgment and suspicion she had endured. They were growing up secure in love, confident in their worth, protected by the life she and Owen had fought so hard to build. As the children went inside to help with dinner preparations, Owen took Rebecca's hand and kissed her knuckles, a gesture of affection he had never lost the habit of. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "I am thinking that girl standing in that saloon, terrified and alone, could never have imagined this life," Rebecca said. "Could never have imagined you or our children or this ranch or any of it. She was just trying to survive." "And she did more than survive," Owen said. "She thrived. We thrived. Together." "Together," Rebecca agreed, squeezing his hand. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun dipped below the horizon and the evening star appeared. The sounds of their children's laughter drifted through the open window, mingling with the gentle lowing of cattle and the soft nickering of horses settling in for the night. This was the life Rebecca had built from the ashes of that terrible night. This was the love that had bloomed in the aftermath of violence and suspicion. And every single day, she was grateful not just for Owen's trust in that crucial moment, but for the life they had created together since. The years continued their steady march. Harry grew into a fine young man, and eventually married a rancher's daughter from a neighboring county. bringing her home to the Ashford ranch where they built their own small house and started their own family. Sarah showed no interest in settling down young, instead becoming one of the most skilled horse trainers in the state, traveling to work with difficult horses, and earning a reputation that brought clients from across the country. Rebecca and Owen became grandparents 3 times over, with Harry and his wife giving them 2 boys and a girl. Watching Owen with his grandchildren, patient and loving and endlessly kind, Rebecca fell in love with him all over again. He was the same man who had walked into that saloon and changed her life, but he was also so much more. He was her partner, her best friend, the father of her children, the architect of her happiness. On a warm summer evening in 1895, they celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary with a party that brought together family and friends from all over Nebraska. The ranch looked beautiful, decorated with lanterns and flowers, long tables groaning under the weight of food, a small band playing lively music for dancing. As Rebecca danced with Owen under the stars, his arms strong around her, their bodies moving in perfect sync after years of practice, she thought about all the moments that had led them here. The terror and the trust, the doubt and the devotion, the fear and the love. What would you tell her? Owen murmured, as if reading her thoughts. That girl in the saloon, if you could go back. Rebecca considered the question carefully. I would tell her that she is stronger than she knows, that surviving is not the end of the story but the beginning. That the man walking through that door is going to change her life in ways she cannot imagine. And that 15 years from now, she will be dancing at her anniversary party, surrounded by children and grandchildren, safe and loved and free. She would probably think you were crazy, Owen said with a smile. Probably, Rebecca agreed, but she would also be glad to know that the worst night of her life led to the best life she could imagine. Owen pulled her closer, resting his cheek against her hair. I am the lucky one, you know. I was drifting, lost, running from grief, and then I found you. You gave me a reason to stop running. You gave me a home. We gave each other home, Rebecca corrected. That is what love is, Owen. Not one person rescuing another, but 2 people choosing to build something together. They danced until the moon was high overhead, and the band was packing up, and the guests were calling their goodbyes. Their children and grandchildren stayed to help clean up, laughing and working together. The family that Rebecca and Owen had created through love and trust and stubborn determination. As they finally climbed into bed in the small hours of the morning, exhausted but happy, Owen pulled Rebecca close and kissed her forehead. Best 25 years of my life, he said. Mine too, she replied. And I am looking forward to the next 25. And the 25 after that, Owen added. Greedy, Rebecca teased, but her heart swelled with joy at the thought of a lifetime still stretching ahead of them. They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, just as they had done nearly every night for 25 years. And when Rebecca dreamed, it was not of that terrible night in the saloon, but of all the beautiful days that had followed. Days filled with hard work and laughter, with children growing and horses running, with sunsets on the prairie and quiet mornings sipping coffee together on the porch. She had survived the worst thing she could imagine and found, on the other side, a life more wonderful than her younger self could have dreamed. And it had all started with a cowboy who chose to believe her when no one else would, who said those simple, powerful words that had changed everything. I trust you, and that is all that matters here. Those words had been a lifeline in her darkest moment. They had been a promise that shaped their marriage, and they had become the foundation of a family legacy that would endure for generations. Trust, love, and the courage to stand by each other no matter what the world threw at them. This was their story. This was their life, and it was perfect.